Hello and welcome to the movie podcast review of Bullet Train. My name is Daniel, and joining me today are my fellow conductors, Anthony.
Hello. Choo-choo.
And Shahbaz.
I choose you guys.
I like it. I was hoping for that one. Now, for both of you, are you guys big Thomas the Tank Engine fans?
You know what? I did used to watch it a lot as a kid, but clearly not as much as Brian Tyree Henry's character in this movie.
Yeah, we're going to talk all about it. How about you, Anthony?
Yeah, I used to watch Shining Time Station growing up. That was a big part of my childhood. So yeah. I'd never watched like just Thomas the Tank Engine. It had to go through Shining Time Station.
Right.
You're a purist.
And
Okay.
Shining Time Station an American thing too? I feel like it was. Because it had like it had Ringo Starr as the conductor.
Yes, it did.
And then
It did.
it had George Carlin as the conductor.
Yes, it did.
But I don't know if it... I think it...
I'm sure. I feel like it was
I feel like it
syndicated
did,
everywhere.
yeah.
If
it
you
was
don't,
everywhere.
It's a good watch it. And then Thomas is also there. So
Thomas is also
I never
there.
liked the face of Thomas because
Why?
it was scary, you know, because it had like these mood swings.
He had like a stop motion look to
Yeah.
his face too.
Thomas, happy
Yeah.
Thomas, curious Thomas. What's the other?
Anthony was
Other
thinking
expressions.
Thomas, thinking Anthony.
Thinking, I already said thinking Thomas. Yeah, it's just the that face. Just,
Peeping Thomas.
It was so weird.
Peeping Tom?
Peeping Tom.
That was a Peeping Tom
That was
joke
a
for
Peeping
you.
Tom joke.
It's interesting because, you know, I was a big Thomas the Tank Engine fan as well too. But like with
You have a
Jason-
tattoo as well, I saw.
I do have a huge tattoo of him that takes
On
up
your
my
chest.
on my entire torso.
It's
My
just
entire
his-
torso.
It's just his face.
Yeah, it's his face, and then the smoke goes into like my chest hair.
Yes.
It's very creative, and I actually
Very
shaved my
creative.
chest hair
In a
into
shape
like
of
a
a cloud.
plume of smoke.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
good. I mean, you guys aren't fans of going to the beach with me, but
No, I am. That's why I always go to the beach with you.
You're like Ben Affleck with the Phoenix.
with the
on
Phoenix,
back.
yeah, I have
But you have
the
the
Thomas.
Thomas in
I have
the
the
front.
Thomas the Tank Engine on mine.
He's a train that will ride again.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's great. But yeah, clearly, like you said, Shay, not as big of a fan as Brian Tyree Henry character from this film, which we're going to talk about very soon. Of course, the movie we are talking about today is Bullet Train. We're going to tell you all about it very soon, but as always, you can catch a brand new episode of the Movie Podcast every single Monday. And watch out throughout the week for our interviews and reviews on all the latest movies and series. Make sure you follow us at The Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. And don't forget to leave us your review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, join our Discord, and write into the show at hello@TheMoviePodcast.ca. You could check out our show notes for all of those links and more. There's some big episodes that I want to direct your attention to, of course, because we've had a pretty huge week here on the Movie Podcast. We had the news break just yesterday or a few days ago now that Warner Brothers Discovery has canceled the Batgirl movie. So if you want to hear our immediate reactions and us trying to make sense of it all, please go listen to that episode. I think we're all still trying to figure out exactly what happened there.
Still processing it.
It's absolutely wild. You could also check out our review of Prey. That, of course, is the Predator prequel that is going to be releasing on Disney Plus and here in Canada and Hulu in the States on August 5th. That's the same date that you could watch Bullet Train if you're looking forward to that. Also, we have our interview with Falula Borg and Eva Noblezada of the Apple original animated film Luck, which you can check that out. We have lots of different reviews and interviews out, so go check out all of that. We have lots of great stuff coming your way. But let's get right into it. The film, of course, that we are talking today is Bullet Train. This is directed by David Leitch. You'll know him from directing Deadpool 2. He's also he worked on the first John Wick film as a director as well too, right?
Yeah, very big in the stunt community.
Yes.
Atomic Blonde.
So this is based on the Japanese novel, which is Maria Beetle, and it stars Brad Pitt, Joey King, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Brian Tyree Henry, Andrew Koji, Hiroyuki Sanada, Michael Shannon, Benito Martínez, Ocasio, and Sandra Bullock. And Bullet Train is going to be releasing exclusively in theaters on August 5th, 2022 from Sony Pictures. And I want to say thank you to our friends at Sony Pictures Canada for inviting us to watch this film. Shahbaz, I would love for you to tell the audience what this movie is all about.
In Bullet Train, Brad Pitt stars as Ladybug, an unlucky assassin determined to do his job peacefully after one too many gigs gone off the rails. Fate, however, may have other plans as Ladybug's latest mission puts him on a collision course with lethal adversaries from around the globe, all with connected yet conflicting objectives on the world's fastest train.
Thank you very much for that, Shahbaz. Anthony, I would love for you to get the conversation started with your first reaction to Bullet Train.
So you guys know I love like anything that takes place in Japan, right? Like
We know that about you.
anything that takes place in Japan, I'm like 100% on board.
Yeah.
Choo choo.
Choo choo. I'm
Choo-choo, you
on
say.
board.
Yeah, you're on the train. You
on
bought
the
a
train.
ticket.
But this train, I want to get off right away because this was painfully boring for a movie that's supposed to be this action-packed, driven story. It was very tiring to watch and sleepy, and I kind of yawned a couple of times, and I actually like stopped yawning and thought, why am I yawning so much?
Am I dead? He once like you, your dad.
Why is this movie making me yawn so much? And I looked at Daniel. I'm like, Daniel looked at me. He's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "I'm bored." He's like, "Yeah, I feel the same way." And
Am I Keanu Reeves, by the way, in your memory of me?
we were whispering.
We were whispering. You're right.
whispering.
We're polite in our theaters.
You know,
Yeah.
for a movie that's directed by a stunt director, there was not a lot of, and stunt directors synonymous with action and making things blow up and actually feel like you're in this film. This movie didn't really make me feel that. It was really story driven. Like it kind of gave me vibes of Atomic Blonde, where it was really
Same director as well, too.
Same director and a lot of story and then little action, and then at least Atomic Blonde had that really sick action sequence.
It did that one shot, right?
Yes, but this not so great. I've been waiting for Brad Pitt to show up on the screen. I think his last film was Ad Astra or Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Once Upon a Time, yeah.
I don't.
You know what? You're right. It is Ad Astra because Once Upon a Time came out in July of that year.
Yeah.
Ad Astra was September. Then we saw him in The Lost City back
Which
in March.
is more of like a cameo.
Right.
So I was looking forward to seeing him on the screen, and this is the first time I didn't want to see him on the screen or portray this character that he was portraying, because it just didn't mesh with Brad Pitt. Like the comedy that was in this movie is really about slapstick humor as well as action.
Right.
He couldn't pull it off. Like he was this character that I couldn't believe and couldn't really see as this comedy dude, because I don't see him as a comedy, like that type of
Brad
comedy.
Pitt could pull off comedy.
Yes.
But this movie felt like it was written for Ryan Reynolds to star in it.
Yeah.
Because even the plot of it was, I think it was Hitman's Wife Bodyguards 2.
I think
right?
so.
Where it's like, here's a hitman that doesn't want to be a hitman anymore. And this is kind of a very similar plot and that's also Ryan Reynolds in that.
Exactly.
But this is a movie where like Brad Pitt, we love Brad Pitt. And I think he's really good in a good chunk of this movie, but also it's like there's a conflicting side of him when he's trying to go comedic and he's just trying to go a little bit more goofy than we're normally to see him. He's too much of a cool and suave guy to pull off goofy, he doesn't nail it. It comes off feeling very, very removed from the rest of the movie when he does have those scenes.
The comedy that he does really well was his role in The Lost City, where it was just that I'm an action hero, macho man.
Yeah.
And there's that
But he was serious.
deadpan delivery that he kind of does.
Yeah.
It's smooth. But this felt like a caricature that he was pulling on, and it didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Or even Burn After Reading, where it was
Right.
like that comedy just worked for him.
Yes.
It was
It's a
written
little
for
wackier.
him. Well, this didn't feel like it was written for him. It was written for someone else, and like you said, Ryan Reynolds makes more sense in this type of role because it has that Deadpool type of humor.
It does, and that's one of the things. And I think we've been seeing. We obviously were referencing a lot of Thomas the Tank Engine in the earlier of this episode, but that's something that I find happens a lot in movies, and I think it's a very much a Ryan Reynolds style of humor, where you'll have a character who becomes obsessed with like Deadpool loves unicorns and chimichangas, and like that becomes his personality. Thomas the Tank Engine was said more in this movie than I think what has been said in even a Thomas the Tank Engine film or television show.
Yeah.
Like it is the driving point of a lot of this movie. And it's really interesting.
The analogies of Thomas the Tank Engine is at least 30 minutes of this film.
Yeah, it's a good chunk of it. It's a good chunk of it. And I think the biggest thing for me, I mean, there are positives of this movie, and I want to pass it to Shay in a second, but there is a lot of this movie that I think can work. But this movie, I think the biggest issue that I had with it is that a lot of it felt a little like or a lot boring for me, because it just felt like it could have been a clean 90 minutes. Instead, it's over 2 hours. And also, it just you needed to just remove a lot of this randomness to it, because this movie relies on a huge cast that is just doing anything other than interacting with each other. They're very compartmentalized, which is funny because it's taking place on different compartments of a train, and they just feel very separate from one another.
Yeah, and I haven't read the book, or I don't know if it ever turned into a graphic novel, but this movie and the way they marketed this movie was supposed to be like this action-packed assassins fighting assassins on a bullet train. And
right.
There was not a lot of that. There was a lot of just story building for these assassins.
A lot of flashbacks.
But then you don't really care because they're not engaging enough. Like their characters are not engaging enough.
Yeah, or given enough time to really develop anything with them.
And you don't feel as like a viewer, you don't care for that character on screen. Even for Brad Pitt's character, the main star, you really don't care what happens to him. And that's when you don't have that, you lose the audience.
Right.
And I think for me, it lost me in that.
Shay, jump on in.
Yeah, I know a movie's in trouble with us when we've gone maybe 20, 30 minutes into the film and not one of us has really looked at each other to say, this is really good. It came to a point where I think I leaned over to you, Daniel, and I'm like, I'm not having fun. Are you having fun yet? You're like, no, not yet. I'm like, okay, well, we're an hour into the movie. Wow, that's another hour left. Let's see where this goes. And it just felt like it was going nowhere. There were way too many plot lines happening, and you have such a great cast, but I didn't like any one of them. I didn't think any of them were interesting. And the movie also does this thing where it thinks the audience is dumb, I think. Like it likes to think that the audience doesn't get what's happening.
Right.
And for everything there needs to be a reference or a monologue or a long drawn out sequence. It felt like Family Guy where it's like, well, remember the time that we stood in line at the thing, and then it'll cut to that and show us the sequence, and you're like, what is the point of this? Or there'll be a big twist or reveal that was very obvious from the beginning of the movie. Very, very obvious, but they have to still show us that whole thing play out as if the audience was like, wait a minute, what? That's who this was? It's really silly, and it boggles my mind that a movie about a bullet train is so slow.
Yeah, I think that's the line that, keeps resonating with me, and when we think about this film, I think I love the style of this movie, and I think from the trailers, from what we saw of it, we're like, this looks like it's going to be fun. This looks like it's going to be unique. It's going to be interesting.
High octane, at least.
High octane. It looks like it's just going to be different. And again, when you have the Japanese setting, you have Brad Pitt, you have like this cool story of assassins and yakuza, and you have just a bunch of other elements, in the pot. This movie has a lot in it. And I feel a lot of that's wasted. Like, you have Karen Fukuhara in this film, who is a glorified extra. And I wasn't sure. I'm like, is she supposed to be a cameo? Because there are cameos in this movie.
Yes.
Or is she supposed to be just a background character? Because it's like what you see of her in the trailer is basically what's in this film, which caught me off guard. I'm like, why isn't she utilized more? Or the train, I forgot what they're called.
The ticket.
Yeah, what are they called here in Canada?
Train ticket man.
No, we have
TTMs.
No, we have like a name for them. The
conductors?
No, it's going to bother me. I'll look it up when
Constables?
No, constables. No. Like we have like who's played by a known actor.
Yeah,
like,
Hero from Hero.
From Heroes. You're like, oh, that's the Bombardier. I think that's what we call them. That's what we call them here in Canada.
Isn't that like a company?
Listen, Bombardier is a company. They make jets.
They make the Sea-Doos and stuff, right? And
they make jets. Yeah,
jets and trains.
Bombardier planes.
But yeah, it's just strange that you have a lot of these cameos, and then Sandra Bullock obviously is in the film as well too. And something that you said, Shay, that of course we were talking about in the car was that this movie, I think, treats the audience like they're not as smart as they could be, because everything is explained, everything is shown to them. But yeah, it kind of bums me out because I truly believe there is a solid film in here, and there are moments where I was like, this is really funny, or this is really engaging, and I like this. But you immediately forget about a lot of that because it's just so stretched out, and that's where I'm failing to remember a lot of the plot of this movie. And you kind of remind me a little bit of The Gray Man in that aspect, where it's like, here's a director who formerly works with Marvel, now doing another thing that they're doing on their own, and it's just like really big and really showy, and then you can't really pull anything from it.
And there's just moments where the movie is again just going on and on and on about something, and you're trying to figure out, what is this relevant for? Why am I seeing this? Again, this is a great pitch of a movie. Like, hey, we've got assassins on the world's fastest train and shit's going down. but the reason that they're all connected is so silly. Like I still am baffled that it's about a kid who gets pushed off a building. Like that's so dumb.
That plot device that is shown in the opening of the sequence does not make you want to watch this film.
No.
Like you're actually confused. I was confused. I'm like, this is how they're going to start this movie?
Yeah, because it felt like it was supposed to be bigger than it should have been.
Yes.
But it never lived up to the heights of what it was trying to tell.
Yeah.
And then people are dying, people are getting shot. All the while, I can suspend disbelief for as much as I possibly can, but no one on the train cares what's happening, by the way. Like, there's just violence occurring. Snakes are slithering around this train. And there's only like 2 members of the staff on this whole train trying to keep it going. And they also just disappear at a certain point. Like, there's a moment in the movie where he's like, where the villain's like, I bought all the tickets on this train from this stop to this stop. What? Like, what is this movie about? It's just convenience for convenience sakes, and none of it lands.
No,
I will say that I really liked, but I think they're given too much in this movie to carry it. I really like Brian Tyree Henry and Aaron Taylor Johnson's characters.
Lemon and Tangerine.
Yeah, I liked that they played brothers. I thought they were really fun to watch, but I also felt like they were just like, let's give them the bulk of the dialogue in this movie.
Yeah.
And you're just like, okay, who's this movie about then? Because we kind of leave Brad Pitt a lot in this movie.
Yeah.
And we'll go focus on literally other compartments of the train, and that's where I'm kind of at. I'm like, man, like you have like Zazie Beetz in this film. You have a lot of big names in this movie who are all just so spread out. You have Bad Bunny in this movie as well too, and you're like, okay. This felt, and then I was just looking up like when was this movie shot, and it was shot literally the fall of 2020. So right when production started rolling again, it felt like they were just compartmentalizing everybody to keep them separate because of obviously COVID protocols, and that could be a factor in this for sure. But it's also just, I don't think for me and for you guys or for the audience, it's not an excuse for making I think an overly long and slow film.
No,
yeah,
right?
Even though they had great chemistry together, I felt like the story that they were sharing was so boring, especially their dialogue between each other. And they played 2 British brothers. So
were they British? Okay, I couldn't tell.
sometimes it's and this is
Shay's kidding. By
at times it's hard to understand what they're saying because Brian Tyree is putting on a British accent, and then you have
Aaron Taylor Johnson who's just going full
putting
Brit.
on a full Brit, and you're just like, why do I care what these 2 guys are saying right now? Why? What are they adding to this movie?
The silly henchmen.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's like with silly henchmen, you just need a little bit of it.
Yes.
And that's the thing, right?
Yes.
I like them. I like them as actors, and I liked them in this movie. But we got too much of it. It's like this movie served you too much of a good thing in it. You're like, this now it's not working because we're spending too much time on it.
Because they were doing punchline after punchline, and at a certain point, you're like, are you giving me important dialogue, or are you just trying to quip each other over and over
And that's
again?
where we got so much of the Thomas the Tank Engine, right?
Oh my
And it
God.
reminded me of something that we would have seen like in a Tarantino film, where he would have been like,
100%.
let's reference a pop culture thing, and
To death.
We're making this the plot of this movie, and like, it's for those of you who will watch it this weekend or eventually watch it, it's crazy how much we hear about Thomas the Tank Engine.
I haven't heard about Thomas the Tank Engine this much since, even when I watched it as a kid. I didn't even hear about it that much. I'd go to school, people would be like, yo, did you watch TT last night? I did. That's it.
Yeah, this movie,
TTE.
you mentioned
We said
Quentin
TT,
Tarantino. You mentioned Quentin Tarantino, and this movie tries its hardest to build, to use its dialogue as a comedic, but also reference pop culture and create like this really cool chit chat. But you're not you're not Quentin Tarantino.
Yeah.
This is not Kill Bill, and that's what it was trying to do on a train. It was trying to do Kill Bill on a train.
Right.
Let's put a lot of narrative, a lot of story, and let's add some dudes with samurai swords.
Yeah.
And you just couldn't buy it. Even like the color temperature and the way they shot the internals of this train, it felt very Kill Bill. A lot of blown out colors.
Even when you look at the flashbacks, like you see the way the flashbacks are shot, it's very like samurai yakuza looking things that we've seen from different films, and obviously from Tarantino's been riffing on forever.
Right.
It's a lot of that. I mean, but there are things like we got a sequence where we learn about like a water ball in this film. I'm like, oh, this was I liked that sequence, but it was shown so late in the movie that I was just like,
It was too late to save it.
it was too late. Where it's like, oh, that was a clever thing to show, but it was also that thing where it's like, but do we need this here?
Yeah.
Could we have shown this somewhere else? Or if this movie was shorter, that would have been a cooler sequence to show. You know what I mean? Like it's like there's good ideas here, but I just feel like they're just not executed well.
Just no one's plot is interesting. That's the biggest crime, really.
When I saw that sequence with a bottle, I was wondering, does the director know how long this movie is? Like, is it making fun of how long this movie is?
I mean, there's a joke in this movie where
even the bottle has a backstory. And the only backstory that you really want to know about is Brad Pitt's Mr. Pitt's character, Ladybug, and you don't really get it. You get nothing. You just get like this idea that he wants to get out of this world and he wants to be more zen.
And that is a character that we see a lot more now in movies. The reformed, anarchist or the reformed convict.
Yeah, like it's a trope that's just tired.
Who goes to therapy and uses their therapy as their weapon for everything. Yeah. And I don't know if it's meant to
Bad Boys for Life too was doing that, right?
They did, and it did it fine in that one.
Yeah.
But like here, it's just constantly he's like, well, let me give you a monologue here, or let me do this, or my therapist, he says that don't hurt somebody, don't do this. I'm like, shut up, like just shut the fuck up.
This is a movie about assassins on the plane. Why is this? And maybe it's from the book. Again,
maybe it's from the book,
but maybe there's certain things
doesn't excuse it.
Need, especially in a movie about assassins
but here's the
fighting
thing.
each other on a train.
Here's the thing: when it comes to book adaptations, and we've spoken to this on the show before, we've spoken this has always been my mantra. At the end of the day, the book doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter
because the book will always be the book. What matters is what you adapt for the screen, and does this work as a movie? If it works in the book, if you're able to expand on it in the book, if this is exactly how it is in the book, awesome. You're going to have the people who love the book hopefully will like this. But at the end of the day, you need to make something as a movie that works as a movie. If that is your source material, great. But this is a movie. This is a different medium. You got to make it work that way. And like we said, and like I was just saying, there's a lot of good ingredients in this movie, but I think the final outcome is just something that's just overstuffed, overlong, and I think relies too much on its setting and its theme and its style to try and tell a cool story.
This would have worked better as a TV series on Netflix.
Each character gets their own episode.
Yeah, and it just builds up, and you could pace yourself that way. I think that would have been the best solution for this idea of a bullet train.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let's get to our final recommendations, because I think we're each going to have a good kind of final chunk to say. Anthony, I'm going to get you to start us off.
So I'm going to say this is a skip it for me. I don't think it's worth your time, because you're gonna buy this ticket, you invest your money, you're going to sit down, and you're going to fall asleep.
If you want to go to sleep, it's a really good movie to watch.
If you want to go to sleep, if you're having trouble sleeping, this is definitely the movie that you want to put on. But yeah, like I think it's better for you to invest your money in another film, like League of Super Pets. So
very different films, very different films.
Well, they're two action driven.
Not ones. I think you would take your kids to Bullet Train first, right? Before DC League of Super Pets?
Depending on the kid or how cool you are as a parent,
right?
There's also another movie coming out that if you have Disney Plus, you could just sit at home and watch, which is Prey, and it's so much better.
Shahbaz, how about yourself?
This is one train that I will not be boarding. I'm going to say skip it. Yeah, not fun. Has, again, like you mentioned, has some great ideas, but great ideas cannot save a sinking train.
Great ideas cannot save a sinking train. That's
that I believe was set on the Titanic.
That was set on the Titanic. Yeah, yes. For myself, I'm torn, because this is not a film that I think I will ever watch again.
No.
But I also think it's that kind of movie that if you were to see it on TV or if it's on a streaming service, maybe give it a shot. So I want to say you could add it to your queue, but it's not one that you have to immediately get to. This is not, like Shay said, this is not a train that you need to jump on right away.
No.
Get to it eventually, because again, this movie relies a lot on its style. It relies a lot on its cast, but I don't think that is enough to save this trip. So, yeah, I would say add it to your queue. Thank you so much for listening to the movie podcast review of Bullet Train. I almost forgot the name of our show for a second. Could you believe it?
The Bullet Podcast?
Oh God, I hope not. As always, you can catch a brand new episode of the Movie Podcast every single Monday. And watch out throughout the week for our interviews and reviews on all the latest movies and series. Make sure you follow us at The Movie Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Letterboxd. And don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, join our Discord, and write to the show at hello@TheMoviePodcast.ca. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please let us know what you thought of the film. Let us know what you thought of our review, and click the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, do all of the fun YouTube stuff. We're so happy to have you here, and hopefully you like what we had to say. And if you didn't, of course, leave a comment. That's why we're here. We want to hear from you. So please, we encourage all of that. We have lots of great episodes coming your way in August. You do not want to miss it. We'll also be attending TIFF in September, and we'll have lots of reviews and interviews coming your way. So stay tuned for all of that. That was This Time with the Movie Podcast, and we'll see you next.